This group of Pakistani protesters is shouting, "Shame on America." Their demonstration comes after a late-night drone attack killed 4 militants in the country's northwest tribal region. Officials say the attack happened near the Afghan border in an area said to be an Al-Qaeda and Taliban stronghold.
Today we are here to protest against the NATO drone attacks in Pakistan. I think these attacks should not be done by America or any other nation in Pakistan just because there is no rule in sovereignty to do these attacks.
The Tuesday night missile launch was the first since 24 Pakistani troops were killed by a U.S. airstrike in November. That attack pushed already strained ties between the two nations close to collapse. Washington says it made no promises to end drone operations. But U.S. officials say the break in drone attacks was meant to ease tension with Pakistan, which many see as key to negotiating peace in neighboring Afghanistan. Tim McGuire, The Associated Press.
Pakistani public is anxiously waiting for the future of democracy after a dramatic turn of events have deepened rift between the country's civil and military leadership. Speculations of a possible military coup are rife in the local media, in the wake of warning by the country's powerful army of grievous consequences over the Prime Minister's criticism against the military and intelligence chiefs. The army's angry reaction was in response to the Prime Minister's allegations that the top generals did not follow the law while submitting their statements before the Supreme Court on the memo controversy. Tensions have been growing ever since the country's army decided to differ with the government on the secret memo, which demanded the US help to rein in the Pakistani military and avert a possible coup.
At this stage, the leadership has to be unified and working for the welfare of the people. But unfortunately, they are poles apart, and the sole responsibility for creating this unstable situation in Pakistan lies on the shoulder of the chief executive, who has behaved in an absolutely irresponsible manner.
The high-profile scandal has already cost Pakistan's ambassador to the US his job, and the latest casualty is the country's defense secretary, a retired general who was considered a loyalist of the military. Analysts believe that the civilian government is increasingly isolated after its confrontation with the military and the Supreme Court, which has already warned that it could dismiss the Prime Minister if he does not reopen corruption cases against the president.
If this is the state that the president is involved and the prime minister is prima facie a dishonest man, then in that case the Supreme Court has to do justice with the country and give a decision, and that is to be implemented by the armed forces.
Despite worsening situation, the government has insisted that there is no threat to democracy in Pakistan. Pakistan has a history of power struggle between the civil and military leadership. What is different this time, though, is that the military has so far resisted to stage another coup, despite its serious differences with the civil administration. But the situation is still uncertain, and according to experts, lot will now depend on the government's handling of its tense relationship with the generals as well as the judges.
While leading a United Nations Security Council meeting, South Africa's president complained the Security Council completely ignored an African Union plan on Libya. He also said the resolution that allowed NATO military action in Libya was largely abused.
South Africa's president, Jacob Zuma, is criticizing the United Nations Security Council for its resolution allowing NATO to bomb Libya.
It is the view of the AU that the 1973 resolution of the United Nations Security Council was largely abused in some specific respects.
While leading a Security Council meeting about ways to improve cooperation between the UN and African Union on Thursday, Zuma complained that the UN ignored the African Union plan for resolving the Libyan conflict.
The AU's plan was completely ignored in favor of bombing Libya by NATO forces. The consequences of actions that were carried out in Libya in the name of the United Nations Security Council have spilled over into other countries in the region.
United States Ambassador to the UN, Susan Rice, stressed the need for greater cooperation, but added that the final decision on international security issues are made by the Security Council.
Under the Charter, the Security Council has a unique, universal, and primary mandate to maintain international peace and security. The Security Council is not subordinate to other bodies, nor to the schedules or capacities of regional or sub-regional groups.
During the meeting, UN Chief Ban Ki-moon attempted to assuage tensions by saying there was more room for improvement.
There will be differences. That is nature. Organizations with different mandates, membership, and perspectives will occasionally have differences in approach. The question is how we manage those differences, how we work together.
Last March, South Africa abstained in the Council's Resolution 1973 that called for military action in Libya.
Welcome to this program. US President Barack Obama has unveiled a new defense strategy. In the details, it expands the country's military presence in the Asia-Pacific region amidst new defense cuts.
And we are here to stay.
During the visit, President Obama announced 2,500 military personnel will be stationed in Australia's Northern Territory by 2016. Its first long-term expansion of the American military presence in the Pacific since the end of the Vietnam War. It's among a series of moves by the U.S. to make its presence in the Pacific a top priority. Also last November, U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Philippine Foreign Secretary Albert Del Rosario signed a declaration calling for a closer alliance between Washington and Manila as Philippines is engaged in territory disputes with China over the South China Sea. The U.S. is also close to reach an agreement with Singapore to base some of its Navy ships there. Singapore sits on the southern edge of the South China Sea and oversees the Strait of Malacca, one of the world's most vital shipping routes. In the Far East, South Korea and Japan are also playing major hosts to a U.S. military presence. Over the past year, the U.S. has increased military maneuvers in the Pacific Ocean, shoring up alliances with two countries. As the U.S. reinvigorates defense ties with nations along China's perimeter, from traditional allies Japan and Philippines to former foe Vietnam, many fear Cold War-style containment is looming.
A remake of the 1984 classic Red Dawn finished taping in 2009, but MGM hasn't released it yet because they are now spending around $1 million to edit out the enemy, because the enemy is the Chinese, and replace the enemy with the new enemy, North Korea. But why go through all that trouble, Ali?
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Friday the 13th. I just realized that today, I said it before, but it just hit me. It's Knights Templar Day, it's Freemason Day. Celebrate everybody. It's an anniversary when the Knights Templar were rounded up and they were all killed, and all of a sudden the Freemasons became publicly known and accepted, free and accepted in a town near you. Iran's Ahmadinejad visits 4 Latin American countries, that's right. And, well, what does the U.S. say about it? The U.S. calls Ahmadinejad's visit to Latin America a desperate reach. And it goes on here, says Ecuador, Venezuela, of course, and Cuba. And something that was interesting was that there was actually a Guatemala leader of this party, Law and Order, I think it was, that was actually assassinated just today. So hot things going on down there. U.S. did not kill Iranian nuclear scientist, claims Leon Panetta. And if the U.S. says that, well, then you can be rest assured that Israel is going to fall in line and parrot exactly what they tell them to say. Says here, President Perez denies Israeli role in Iran assassination. Then next up, Iran steps up military aid to Syria, even though Iran's locked in a confrontation with the West. Says it appears to be stepping up its military efforts to save its strategic Arab ally, President Bashar Assad of Syria, as he battles an insurrection aimed at toppling his regime. Next up, Russian-operated ship with bullets reaches Syria. This is January 13th. Russian-operated ship carrying a cargo of ammunition has reached conflict-torn Syria after being temporarily halted during a refueling stop in Cyprus. Sources in Russia, and Cyprus said. Then we have Russia warns of Syrian no-fly zone, a humanitarian corridor, they call it, in Libya. And it says here, Russia has claimed that NATO is preparing to impose a no-fly zone in Syria to protect rebel fighters, just like in Libya, basically, Al-Qaeda, and they're terrorists, what they are, and they're funded and they're supported by the West to get a regime change. And it says here, a move that would dramatically escalate the 10th-month uprising. EU ban on Iranian oil will harm troubled European economies. A fine deal on the oil embargo will probably be delayed for 6 months as struggling EU economies try to adjust to the sanctions. And this, of course, is a kind of a divide and conquer type thing. If you don't do this, you're going to put the world put them at risk. So, but they're going to be hurt by that. Italy's going to be hurt by that, their economy. So we have India to buy Iran oil despite U.S. sanctions minister. China's also doing the same thing, along with Japan, who's downplaying the pledge to cut Iranian oil imports. And I've talked about Japan before. It'd be like another situation where they would be putting themselves in like Pearl Harbor, where they run out of oil or their oil's cut off. They had oil embargoes prior to the Pearl Harbor attack that the U.S. knew about, and brought the U.S. into a world war because what? Oh, they were isolationists. They were pacifists, and that's why they went towards nuclear power. And what happened to that? Well, they didn't want to bend over to the Western economy, submit their economy over to the West, and that they got harped. Yeah, they got harped. Real nice. Weather weapons, Pakistan nuclear material among least secure in the world, says report. And that's what the experts say. So, they're next on the docket, possibly Pakistan, for a regime change. Everything happens for a reason, it seems. Strike kills 15 in Pakistan's tribal northwest region. Then next up, we have Britain. Britain to boost arms sales to the Saudis. That's right. Cameron has made his first visit to Saudi Arabia as a UK premier to win lucrative weapon deals in the Middle East's most autocratic regime. I think Germany was trying to sell tanks to him as well, but I think it was stopped. U.S. to withdraw 7,000 troops from Europe. Here's the big but rotational units would still maintain strong military presence in the region, and there will be mercenaries there as well. The move is part of a don't forget the humongous base, the biggest base in the world in Iraq and Babylon. Then the move is part of a 10-year defense strategy that our Fuhrer presented on January 5th, giving strategic priority to the Asian Pacific and Middle East region. I'm going to speed it up here. Obama boosts U.S. military in Australia and reassures China. Obama to send U.S. troops to South Sudan, all prefabricated. I talked about the aid shuffle there. U.S. troops quietly surge in the Middle East. U.S. military moves carriers into the Arabian Sea. U.S. stations 2 aircraft carriers opposite Iran, 15,000 troops in Kuwait. Then U.S. seeking to close down Iran's central bank. And it's like, well, if you were in the United States, what would you do if they said they were going to close down your central bank? Well, and the Feders and stuff like that, limited government, be like, yeah, end that sucker. But, if you do believe in that, how would you like it if they did that? Oh, yeah, U.S., you better not have any weapons that you could actually defend your sovereignty so we can't come in and rape your resources. Otherwise, we're going to close down your central bank. Then we have U.S. builds hospitals in Georgia ready for war with Iran. They're sponsoring the construction of facilities in Georgia on the threshold of a military conflict in Iran. A member of Georgian opposition movement, Public Assembly, has stated Russia afraid Israel will push U.S. into war with Iran, Vladimir Putin, ally says, and they don't want Putin in there for some reason. The West, they wanted to get their own little puppet. False flag Mossad posed as U.S. spies to recruit terrorists to fight covert Iran war. And finishing up here, guys, U.S. deploys radar troops to Israel. We kind of knew that, but just tying together U.S. troops in Japan to be mobilized for North Korea provocations, right? Like Red Dawn, they're just changing the chessboard pieces, but it's all the same BS. It's all planned out. U.S. warns of Bangkok terror threat. So now they got the fake, phony war on terror sponsored by the government so they can rain down on the freedoms there as well. U.S. restoring full ties to Myanmar in a substantial step forward. Maybe it's a great leap forward. And this is the individual who they have in their pocket who is educated at Oxford and born in British Burma. And finishing up, Chinese yuan or renminbi could become second world currency. So China and Japan will soon conduct bilateral trade directly with the yuan, and of course that's with Russia as well. Thank you.